Well, I thought we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about my life of crime and run ins with the law. Now, sometimes it's not easy to talk about your criminal history, but thankful for me, I really don't have anything too wild to report. And yet, all of us would have to admit, most likely, that we have had some experiences with the police in our life. And, we don't spend a lot of time talking about that or necessarily thinking too much about it. But for some reason, I thought I should take a moment and just kind of make a notation of all of those experiences that I have, kind of from the beginning all the way up until the present, and make some content out of that. So let's begin. First of all, I got to tell you a story of something which I'm not proud of that I did, and it started probably when I was around 10 years old. I don't know, that's give or take a couple of years. I know I was a child. I can't remember how old I was, but my mother liked to go to the Goodwill, the thrift store. And my goodness, she would spend hours in there. She would spend so long in there shopping and looking. And for a child of my age, that was an extremely boring experience. So I would start to try to find things to do. I would go to the electronics aisle and look around to see if there were any interesting things for me to tinker with, like maybe a VCR or a VHS tape rewinder. And I would go to the toy aisle and see if there were anything interesting in there for me to play with. I would walk around in there. I would just kind of try to kill the time however I could. And around Halloween, I got what seemed to be a really, really good idea. And that idea was I would go over to the Halloween section where there's masks and things of that nature. And I would find one of those masks that you could pull over your head, a rubber mask. And I would find some gloves, and I would find some pants, and I'd find a shirt. And then I would take all of those items and I would stuff them with more different clothing that I'd pulled off the racks. And by the time I was done, I would have created what I called a pumpkin man. And it really was essentially a mannequin made out of Halloween costume materials and random clothing that I'd pulled off of the racks, stuffed, and turned into, well, a mannequin. And I'd build these mannequins on the couches and things like that in the furniture department. Oh my goodness, it was fun. It gave me something to do. But you might imagine the store employees got tired of this, and they did not care for the way I was treating their merchandise. So they told me to stop, and I think in the end I didn't stop. I continued because, I was having fun. And so they had enough, and at some point they called the police. They took the evidence into the back, and they had my stuffed mannequin that I was crafting with their product. They had it in a shopping cart, and the police officer came in, and they came running out, and they said, "Here's the evidence, officer. Look what this boy is doing." And the officer looked at me and he said, "You're going to have to stop, son, because I don't want to have to escort you." And I understood him. I understood this was not something that this was not the hill I wanted to die on. So at that point, I decided that would be the last pumpkin man that I would ever make. And I just went ahead and let that be a closed book in my life. The officer went on with his day, and I went on with my life. And I don't know, maybe I thought it was a little bit frightening and a little bit funny all at the same time. And I think as the years pass, when I look back on that story, I think it's definitely more on the side of funny. So that happened. Maybe that's one of the biggest things that ever happened to me involving the police. But I would say that the next time I would have an altercation with the police, it would be around in my early teens. And I got caught by a police officer, and I was riding my bicycle without a helmet. And he said to me, he pulled up alongside and he said, you really should be wearing a helmet. He said, I should give you a ticket, but I won't give you a ticket. But next time you go out to ride your bike, put on a helmet. And I said, yes, sir. And that was also a formative experience. It was a very brief experience, but it also kind of made me always feel like it would be a really good idea to put on your helmet when you ride a bicycle. And interestingly, now I live in Montana, and in Montana there is no rule that says that you have to wear a bicycle helmet. You can choose to, or you can not if you don't. That being said, I always wear a helmet when I ride my bicycle, because now, as I've progressed into, later stages of my life, I value my life, and I think to myself, it really would be a rough deal to go head first off of a bicycle and split my head open. So I like to just go ahead and wear the helmet, because it's all around a good idea. But that early formative experience also taught me that I should always feel a sense of profound shame if I were to be riding a bicycle without a helmet. So there was that. Then a while later, as I progressed through my teenage years, I started to take interest in being able to branch out, to drive a car, to be on my own. Only thing is, I lived in an environment where nobody in the family drove a car. I didn't know anybody who drove a car. And that proved to be a rather significant barrier to me getting my license, because there wasn't any vehicle for me to learn to drive with, and my family was poor. There certainly wasn't going to be any money to go to a driving school or anything like that. So there I was thinking, how am I going to find a good way to get around? I'm a young man of means and importance. I need to have a motorized vehicle to make my way around the world in. And so I decided that the best way to achieve this without a driver's license would be to get a bicycle and then attach a kit, basically a weed eater motor, to the back end of it. And the weed eater motor was attached to a belt, which would clip onto the back wheel of the bicycle. And you'd pour some gas into there. It sounded and it operated exactly like a weed eater. The only benefit was you didn't have to do a mix with the gas. It just took regular petrol, regular gasoline. So I would fill up my gas tank on the bicycle, and then I would also load up with some extra gas, and I'd put that into a water bottle. and I'd have my extra fuel there, so that if I ran low, I'd be able to fill up again. And one particular evening, I was riding my motorized bicycle, which sounded like a weed eater, down the side of the highway, and I had no lights on. And I went speeding by these officers who just finished pulling over somebody, and the driver they pulled over had left, and it was just them. They were just there on the side of the road, probably finishing their paperwork or talking to each other or something. In any case, at that moment, I went buzzing by, and I caught their attention, because there was no way not to catch their attention. And it was in the middle of the evening, like 9 o'clock at night, and there I went running by on a bicycle powered by a weed eater, making a lot of noise, racket, with no lights on. And they whipped around, they pulled me over, and they said, this is really cool. We're not sure if it's road legal, and you definitely shouldn't be riding it without any lights on. And they actually thought it was cool, but they were also appalled at the same time. And then they let me go so I could continue my journey home. I think that was kind of the beginning of the end of my motorized bicycle time of my life. Eventually, I did get my driver's license. I moved on with my life in a little bit more of a normal way, vehicle-wise. And I thought the risk of the police being infuriated with my means of transportation really just took a lot of the glamour out of it. Anyway, that was so there was that. Again, you know, up to this point in my life, I hadn't ever received any actual punishment from any police officers. Just a series of stern warnings related to things that I was doing. Now, fast forward a little bit further, and I worked at Walmart, and I got off work one day, and I thought, you know, it's the night is still young. I would like some adventure, and I had just, I think, watched some YouTube videos or read about the old town hall. The old town hall was supposedly haunted by ghosts. And I thought, well, that is very interesting. I'd like to go down there, and I would like to explore the old town hall this evening and see if there's any ghosts in there. So I pulled over and I parked. And I went over to the front door of the old town hall, and the door was propped open. And I thought, that's nice. The door's open, the lights are on. I guess I'll go in and see what's going on in there. So I did. I went in, I looked around, and interestingly, I didn't find any businesses open in there. I didn't find any offices open in there. I didn't find anyone in there at all. So I just looked around, and then I came back down the stairs, and I was preparing to make my way out the way I came. But that's when I encountered, I would say, probably 3 police officers, and they surrounded me, and they patted me down, and they appeared to be rather stern about asking me why I was there and where I had come from. And then I tried to pull my some identification out of my pocket, and they grabbed my hand because they thought maybe I was going to grab for a weapon in there. And in any case, it all kind of calmed down from there, and they said, well, where did you come from? How did you get in here? And I said, I came in right over there through that door that's propped open. I can see it right there. That's how I came in. And I just came in because I wanted to look around in here, and that's all. And it turns out what had happened was the town hall was indeed closed. It was not open to the public. The officers, they were in there because they were looking for someone who had broken a window nearby, and they were looking for the perpetrator who might have been doing a break and enter there. And they didn't find the perpetrator. They didn't find the actual criminal. The person they found was me, just being a doofus there, exploring. And I quickly managed to convince them that I was not indeed a criminal. I was just a person who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so they said, well, you just go out the way you came in. This building is closed. And so I went out, and I guess that was a good experience, because the truth is the likelihood of finding ghosts in there would be pretty low. But at least I did find something in there that made it more memorable than it might otherwise have been. So there was that. And then there was a time where I started to really enjoy taking pictures. I like to take pictures of cities, take pictures of interesting places, and so I would tend to always have a camera on me, and then I would like to walk around and just sort of explore places, get some exercise, take some pictures. And that's been a hobby that I've continued to have throughout my life. I always like to take pictures of things in the city and explore places. Well, one day I went over to a police station in Tukwila, Washington at that time, and there was this Native American mural right there by the front door, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So I walked up to it, and I took my camera out and I took a picture of it, and there were these 2 officers standing over there, and they saw me do this. And I guess in that moment, one of them thought, that somebody just randomly taking pictures of the police station seemed suspicious. So they stopped me. And there was one large police officer and one small police officer. One was older and the other was younger. The smaller one appeared to be younger. The larger one seemed to be older and more senior. In any case, they said, "What you're doing is not baseline. Why are you taking pictures here?" And I had been watching a lot of the Red Green Show, which is kind of like a Canadian redneck sort of a show, if you haven't ever heard of it. And so I thought in that moment that I would sort of have a Red Green like approach to this situation. And I guess I just I was taken over by something that just kind of spoke on behalf of me. And I didn't plan to do this. It just kind of came out. And I said to the large police officer, I said, "Well, sir, there's no need for us to get our panties in a wad here about this." Well, at that moment, this rather large, serious-looking police officer stared at me solemnly, seriously, and he said in very clear terms, he said, "I don't wear panties." Well, I mean, that's probably about the one of the best comedy moments of my life right there. The smaller, younger police officer thought that was hilarious, and then he started busting up laughing over there, while the other one was trying to be serious with me. And at that point, it did really kind of just sort of devolve into a moment of levity. And the officers kind of lost interest in me at that point, and they asked to see the pictures on my camera and verify that I didn't have anything wildly suspicious going on there, and then they concluded that this was not really a problem, and so I moved on with my life. And somewhere saved on a file, there is that picture of a mural at the police station and, photo evidence of this particular event that happened. A rather funny event, probably one of the funniest events I've ever had surrounding the experience with police. Anyways, so there was that. Now, the next thing that happened is where things really got serious. Where the punishment, the hard hand of the law came in to play. The dark years of my life, you might even say. One day I was on my way to work, and there was this school, and the school was kind of set off a little bit away from the road. So if you were driving down the main highway, I think it was like about a 5-lane road, and when you're going down there, there's a sort of like a ditch, a pond there or something, and the school was behind that. So anyways, I was going the normal 35 miles an hour, and I did not realize it was a school zone, and at that particular moment I was supposed to be going 20. So there I was doing 35 and a 20 in the school zone on my way to work, and I didn't even know I was a criminal at that time until I saw the police car preparing to pull me over. And so I pulled over, and the officer said that is going to be $200. And that really was a very negative experience that morning. I felt ashamed of myself. I felt perhaps a bit indignant toward the police officer, because he decided that he was not going to show any form of lenience or mercy. He was going to give me that $200 ticket because that's what I deserved. He was not there to be kind. He was not there to be friendly. He was not there to be partial in any way. He was there to meet his ticket quota, and he did just that. So I was $200 poorer as a result of this. Now you would think I would have learned my lesson, and in my defense, throughout the remainder of my life, I never received another ticket for driving too fast in a school zone. That being said, though, it wouldn't be very long until I would receive my second ticket. In this case, the ticket would come from the automated toll booth at the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Now, I lived in Tacoma, and I went across the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which was governed by a toll plaza. And what I didn't know is that when you get off at the first exit after you cross the bridge, there's an exit and an entrance to the freeway, which exists between where the toll plaza is and where the bridge is. So if you go across the bridge, you get off the freeway, and then you get back on the freeway exactly where you got off. That's between the toll plaza and the bridge, which means you're not going to actually go through the toll plaza. You're going to bypass it entirely. The reason for this is because there's an automated good-to-go system in place there, and you will be automatically scanned, and your account will be charged if you happen to have the good to go sticker on your window. Well, I did not have a good to go sticker on my front window. I just made a mistake and got on the freeway in the wrong place, and I went past the toll booth without paying my toll. And so at this point, wanting to be a good citizen, I got back on the freeway. I went back over there. I went into the office of the toll authority, and I said I accidentally went through the scan and go area when I should have went through the actual normal toll booth. And can I pay my toll and make it so I don't get a ticket? And the lady at the counter said, no, you cannot. You just have to wait, and then you'll get a ticket, and then will have learned your lesson when you get your ticket. And I was really infuriated. As a matter of fact, I was so infuriated by the perceived unfairness of this, I actually went to traffic court, and I made my case before a judge how unfair this felt. And then the judge said, too bad. You're going to have to go pay your ticket. But I do think that the judge showed a little bit of lenience by lowering my fine by a small amount. Long story short, though, in Washington State at that time, I think a toll always was just about $200. A fine of any kind, a ticket would be about $200. Now, in fairness, I have to also divulge that during this same time period, I think there was a third ticket that happened, and that ticket happened courtesy of an automatic camera at an intersection. And I didn't mean to run a red light. I just happened to still be in the intersection when the light turned red, and a camera saw me, and then it sent a ticket to me in the mail. So I think during that particular period of my life, the crazy thing is I had to pay 3 tickets, probably in the course of a rather short period of time. Anyways, then I got pulled over for not using my turn signal. I was sitting in the left turn lane at an intersection, and I forgot to use my turn signal. I just didn't use it at all. And then I turned, and then I got pulled over. Well, that's where it got interesting, because the officer, after he pulled me over, he returned my vehicle, and he asked me if I had stolen it. And I thought, well, that's alarming. This is quickly escalating. And I said, no, I did not steal it. I have proof that it's mine, right in the glove box. So he said, you need to just stay right there while I look into this more. I guess determine, like, am I going to need to arrest you or something? So I was sitting there thinking, well, this isn't good at all. Anyways, he came back in a minute, and he said, I am sorry. It looks like I typed your license plate number into my computer incorrectly, and that's why it said that the vehicle belonged to somebody else. Well, at that point, he seemed like he was much less interested in giving me a ticket, and he just said, well, you just need to make sure in the future that you use your turn signal, and you have a good day. So I got off. Probably would have been given another ticket there if it weren't for the fact that that officer made a mistake, and it's really awkward to give somebody a ticket right after you've falsely accused them of stealing their own vehicle. So, what's next? You know, the truth of the matter is, I went into a dry spell then. I went years without having any interaction with the police in my personal life. Until more recent times. I had a dog. The dog was inside my apartment. I came home and I found my window broken. And I thought somebody must have tried to break into my apartment. And so I called the police to report an attempted break-in. And I thought my dog must have been the only reason why they didn't actually get in, because he scared them off. Well, the officer came out and looked around and petted on my dog a little bit, and we talked, and he made a note of the potential risk of perhaps an intruder on the prowl, and he went his way. And the window was replaced and life went on. But after the fact, I learned something which I didn't know at the beginning, and that was that one of my neighbors had seen what actually had happened. Because he'd brought his dog out, and my dog had seen his dog through the window and started trying to jump at the glass, and so my own dog had smashed out my own window. And then I called the police on my own dog, not knowing that he was the criminal the entire time. And it turns out the officer who responded was physically petting the perpetrator, and none of us were any the wiser. So I called the police on my own dog, and that's the truth. So, you know, that's an interesting climax to my life of crime. And that's really about it. That's about all I've got when it comes to personal altercations and engagements with the law in all their various forms. You know, I think if that's all I have to report, I've lived a pretty law-abiding, peaceful life. You know, I really am not the hardcore criminal type, I wouldn't say. But I have spent a decade or so on the front lines of retail. And I've seen a lot of police officers. I've seen a lot of criminals at the Walmart store over the years in all the different stores I've worked at. And there are a lot of stories there, which are actually much more vibrant, perhaps even more dangerous, of people doing wild, ridiculous, even dangerous things in public, and the police jumping in to get involved. That's probably too many different things for me to enumerate what they all are in this video. But I will share one story just to give you a bit of an example of the sort of shenanigans that I have seen happen. Once we, as managers in a store, we saw a shoplifter, and we intercepted him, and we got him into the asset protection office, and there he was sitting in there, and all the managers were in there with him, and we told him that it was time for him to meet with the police. So the police were going to come to meet with this gentleman. Well, he decided at that moment that he did not want to meet with the police, and so he decided he wanted to leave. The only thing is, he was in a room filled with people, and he wasn't really able to escape. So he thought about it, and he decided that the only way out would be up. And so he went up into the ceiling. He jumped up in there, straight on up into those false ceiling tiles, and up into the ceiling. And he was up in there, and we thought maybe he'd escaped. Well, he didn't escape for long, because he fell through the ceiling on the other side of the wall. And what he didn't understand was that he had fallen into a room which was secured. And all we had to do, once he fell through the ceiling on the other side in that closet area, all we had to do was keep the door shut, because he had self-trapped himself in there. And then when the police arrived, all they had to do was fish him out of there. And then he had to account for his shoplifting behaviors, and also why he had jumped through the ceiling, damaged the ceiling, and fallen through into a closet. So that was an interesting experience. I mean, anytime you see a full-grown man disappear into the ceiling and then fall through the ceiling, that's an interesting day at work. Now, I have to say, these days I work in the office, and there's not a whole lot of excitement at that level that happens in my day-to-day life, but I do have some memories of interesting things which I've seen happen in stores. But not all of it was bad. And there are a few things which I think I should close with here as I wrap up this tale. And that's the nice things, the things that you remember for all of the right reasons. Like one time when a man was caught stealing a pair of work boots. And there he was sitting there in our office, caught stealing these shoes. He acknowledged that he didn't want to be a criminal. He had a work truck outside. He was on his way to work. He didn't have any way to afford new boots, and he needed them for his work. And he decided he was just going to take them because he was desperate, and he was apologetic. He was ashamed. And an officer came, and the officer didn't condemn him for this, didn't take him away. The officer instead decided to take money out of his own pocket and buy the man the boots. So that man came into the store to be a thief, and he left with a pair of boots courtesy of a law enforcement officer that decided that day that mercy outweighs punishment. That's one of those things you remember. Or a time when I got into a car accident, and my pickup truck had a broken axle planted up against some bushes, and it was a rainy day, and there I was stranded on the side of the highway waiting for a friend to come pick me up, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And the officer that showed up to handle the accident gave me a ride home. And in this particular case, it was about a 30-minute drive. And, she didn't have to do that, but she did. And that was an act of kindness that was shown, just because when you're representing the law, it's not just about enforcing things. Sometimes it's also about being there for people. Then there's times when we had police officers participating in Toys for Tots events. And there was a time when a kid was paired up with an officer. The officer's going to buy the kid a Christmas present. And the kid said, hey, instead of toys or something, can we just go over to grocery and get some food? Because we don't have enough food to eat at home. And everyone came together and put together a whole lot of stuff for that family. So, there's the times in my life when I've been infuriated by the law. Things like getting a $200 ticket for something when you didn't even intend to do wrong. Those weren't really positive moments. And then there's the moments which were just perhaps memorable because they were funny, but not really consequential. I think there's something to be said, though, for the fact that the things which you really remember the most aren't the times when you were punished for something. They're the times when someone showed you mercy when they didn't have to, kindness when they didn't need to. Those are the things that you tend to remember. And I think that leads me to the final closing thought I have here. And that is that law should be strong like water. It should be strong in the sense that just like water, it can be the most mighty force in the world. But also, unlike stone, it's a living, evolving thing which always adapts and conforms to the place where it finds itself. It is essentially encapsulated in this particular idea to follow the spirit of the law, but not the letter. I was watching a video recently of a truck, a semi-truck on the side of the freeway. He decides he's going to do a U-turn in the middle of a freeway, because there's those little spots where you can do a U-turn, you can turn around, even though you're not really supposed to. Like, police will use those as turnarounds oftentimes. Maybe utility vehicles will, but the public is not supposed to do a U-turn on the freeway. In any case, this truck decides he's going to do it. He makes a U-turn and he gets stuck in the middle. And now he's there, stuck in the middle of the freeway, right in the middle of an illegal U-turn, and the freeway is blocked. Cars can't pass. And there's a truck behind him, another truck behind him. The other truck driver pulls up behind him, and in less than 10 minutes, that other truck driver has pulled him out of the place where he was stuck and helped him get back on the road again. Now, that guy had made a mistake. He's making a U-turn in the freeway. He's risking himself. He's risking other people. He's doing something that's stupid, that's not good judgment. And then somebody comes along and doesn't judge. They don't punish. They don't report. They just lend a helping hand. And I thought when I watched that, if you were the guy who made the mistake, you're going to remember that act of kindness, that act of mercy for the rest of your career. You're probably not going to make the same mistake again. So remember many, many times in life, showing mercy when you don't need to, showing kindness when you don't have to, being magnanimous toward people, and remembering the human element is just as important as being a representative firmly of law or policy. And I don't probably engage with police very much these days, but I do have a certain degree of exposure to human resources and all of those things that go on in corporate environments. And I think there also, it's always important to remember the human element is what really makes a difference in the end. Caring about the spirit and not necessarily worrying about the letter. And that's one thing that makes leadership very difficult and not suited to most people. There's a lot of smart people out there who know how to be correct about everything, but they don't know how to interpret a middle path between policy and practicality. They don't know how to do their best to uphold the spirit without becoming completely legalistic and just totally laying the hammer down on anything that falls outside the official narrative of policy. Nobody benefits from someone who just spouts policy and never looks at context. But you also can't be a pushover who never holds people accountable or allows bad actors to get away with whatever they want. It's about finding that middle way. It's about finding a path that's moderate and fair and caring about the people who you encounter in your life. That's something that I think we all could learn from, something we could all remember, and something that we all are guilty of falling short in. The tendency to be cruel to people, the tendency to see excuses for being judgmental instead of putting ourselves in the shoes of others. Empathy is important. That doesn't mean that people are going to be free from consequences for their actions. We always will ultimately have to be accountable for the choices that we make. But it's also important to understand that no matter how much you want to look at somebody and say you're better than them, the truth is, if our lives played out different and we were in somebody else's shoes, there's a pretty good chance we would probably make similar decisions. So even if it seems like we're adversaries, we should always remember we're all still human. And we should always want what's best, both for ourselves and for each other. Vengeance does not make anyone whole. And an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. That's what they say. So, isn't that true, though? When you try to live your life holding everyone accountable, trying to enforce the law, you kind of miss the entire point of it. It's like people who spend their whole life trying to get more money, and they miss the point, which is that the reason why money matters is because you're supposed to enjoy your life with it. So it doesn't matter how much you have if you aren't enjoying your life. It doesn't matter how much authority you have if you never serve anything greater than yourself. So, we're all in this together. There's times to laugh, there's funny stories, there's lessons, and sometimes there's lessons about what kind of leaders we don't want to be. But if there is any takeaway, I suppose, when it comes to the law, we owe all the people who serve to keep order in our society a great deal, because they don't have an easy job. And it's easy to throw stones when you aren't the one on the front lines, but for all the people who are doing it every day, it's nice to have sheepdogs to protect the flock, because not all of us are cut out for it. So I think it's real nice to be able to walk down the street and know there's people in uniform that are there to keep order and peace in the world. As always, good luck. Thanks for watching.